Greek mythology, it's really something else. It's amazing to think that these incredible stories were first written down by, well, legends like Homer and other ancient Greek writers. And what's striking when you really dive into them is just how vast they are.
Oh, absolutely. It's a journey that takes you from these massive conflicts between the gods on Mount Olympus, like, Zeus's epic battle to overthrow his own father, Cronus. Even a massive flood that was sent to, well, kind of reshape humanity. It goes all the way to the very creation of humans themselves by Prometheus. And then, of course, there's that whole Pandora's box incident.
Oh, yeah. And you can't forget about the legendary heroes who are at the heart of all these stories. We're talking about figures like Hercules, the guy who had those 12 seemingly impossible labors. Then there's the whole epic of the Trojan War and all those crazy encounters they had with monsters like, the Hydra with all its heads, the Cyclops with just the one eye, and Medusa who could turn you to stone with a single look. It's a whole world packed with action and intrigue.
It really makes you think, like, where do we even begin with all of this?
Well, I guess the best place to start is right at the beginning.
Okay, so imagine this. Before anything existed, there was only chaos, just this emptiness, But out of this chaos came these two fundamental beings, Gaia, who represents the earth, and Eros, who represents love.
Love, huh? Right from the very start. Interesting. But it was pretty chaotic, right? So how did things get a little more organized?
Well, that's when night and day came into being. They put an end to the total chaos and brought in this cycle, a kind of structure to the universe as it was just starting to form.
So night and day were like the original organizers.
You could say that. They set the stage for everything that followed.
That makes sense. So who came next in this grand story?
That's when we get to the first gods and those powerful titans. Uranus, the sky, became the ruler. But he wasn't exactly the kindest dad to his kids, you know what I mean?
Well, I've heard stories. What did he do?
Well, Uranus was terrified of his own children, the Titans. He was so scared of them that he decided to imprison them deep inside the earth.
That's a little harsh, even for a god.
Yeah, not exactly father of the year material. But the Titans weren't going to just sit there and take it. They turned to their mother, Gaia, for help.
And I bet Gaia wasn't too happy about her kids being locked up, right?
Not at all. She decided to do something about it. She created this super strong sickle, indestructible, and gave it to her youngest son, Cronus.
So what did Cronus do with this sickle?
He waited for the right moment, and when Uranus came to, be with Gaia, Cronus jumped out and, let's just say, he used that sickle to end his father's reign in a pretty dramatic way. He castrated Uranus, and, well, the rest is history.
Wow, talk about family drama.
Right. And here's where it gets even wilder. The severed parts of Uranus fell into the sea, and from them, Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, was born. It's a pretty memorable origin story.
I'd say so. So Cronus takes over after all this.
Yeah.
But it sounds like this family has some serious issues with power struggles.
Oh, yeah. Cronus, even after what he did to his own father, was just as bad in his own way.
How so?
He had these kids, right? 3 sons and 3 daughters with his sister Rhea. They became known as the gods. But Cronus had heard a prophecy.
A prophecy? What did it say?
It said that one of his own children would eventually overthrow him, just like he overthrew his father.
So Cronus decided to deal with this prophecy in a, shall we say, proactive way.
Yeah, he did. He came up with this rather gruesome solution. Every time Rhea gave birth to one of his children, he swallowed them whole.
That is intense. I can't imagine what Rhea must have been going through.
It was horrifying for her, but thankfully one child managed to escape.
Oh, who was that?
Zeus. Rhea hid him away on Mount Ida in Crete, and instead of giving Cronus the baby, she gave him a rock wrapped in baby clothes.
That's pretty clever, Rhea, tricking Cronus like that.
It really shows her quick thinking. Meanwhile, Zeus was being raised in secret by Gaia on Crete until he was old enough and strong enough to challenge Cronus.
Okay, so we've got a showdown brewing. What happened when Zeus finally confronted his dad?
It was a huge battle, but in the end, Zeus managed to defeat Cronus, and crucially, he freed his siblings from his stomach.
Wow, what a family reunion. I bet they had a lot to talk about after that. So what did Zeus do after he won?
He started a massive war against the Titans. This wasn't just a small squabble, it was a 10-year war for control of the cosmos.
10 years? That's a long time to be at war, even for gods.
It was a brutal war. But Zeus had some powerful allies. He released the 100-handed giants and the Cyclops from where they were imprisoned.
And those guys were pretty strong, right? Weren't they also incredible craftsmen?
Exactly. They helped the gods by forging incredible weapons for them. The Cyclops created Zeus's thunderbolt, Poseidon's trident and Hades' helm of invisibility.
Talk about powerful gifts. Those must have given the gods a serious edge in the war.
They were crucial to the Olympians' victory. And with the Titans finally defeated, Zeus decided to imprison them in Tartarus.
So no more threats from them. What happened after that?
The three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, divided the realms between them. Zeus took control of the sky, Poseidon ruled the seas, and Hades became the king of the underworld.
A pretty clear division of power.
Yeah. And so, the 12 Olympians made their home on Mount Olympus, ready to rule over everything. But their story is just one part of the larger picture of Greek mythology.
Right. Because then there's the whole story of how humans were created.
Exactly. Now, even though the gods were in charge, there was this titan named Prometheus who had been speared by Zeus. He looked at the creatures living on Earth at the time and wasn't impressed. He thought they were pretty basic, just animals, really.
I see. So Prometheus decided he could do better.
He did. Prometheus decided to create humans. He took some clay and fashioned them into the first people.
That's a pretty hands-on approach to creation.
It is. And Athena, the goddess of wisdom, saw what he was doing and thought it was pretty amazing. So she breathed life into his creations, and that's how humans were born.
That's an incredible image. But I'm guessing that Prometheus wasn't done there. He seems like a guy who always wanted to push things further.
You're right. Prometheus knew that humans had potential for greatness, but he also knew they needed something to help them surpass the animals and really thrive.
I think I know where this is going. Fire, right?
Yep. It was Athena herself who suggested that fire would be the key to helping humans advance, and Prometheus took this to heart. He snuck up to Mount Olympus and stole fire from Helios's chariot, the chariot that carried the sun across the sky.
That's a pretty bold move, stealing from a god.
It was. But Prometheus was deeply committed to humanity. He gave them the fire, and it completely changed their lives. They learned to cook, to make tools, and to build shelters. They started to dominate the natural world.
But I bet Zeus wasn't too thrilled about this whole fire-stealing business.
He was furious. He saw it as a direct challenge to his authority. So Zeus decided that humans had to start making sacrifices to the gods as a way to show their respect and appreciation.
It sounds like a way to keep them in check.
You could say that. But Prometheus, being the champion of humanity that he was, wasn't going to let them be taken advantage of. He came up with a plan to trick Zeus.
Oh, how did he do that?
During one of these sacrifices, Prometheus divided up the parts of a bull. On one side, he put the good meat hidden under the skin. On the other side, he piled up the bones and innards and covered it all in fat to make it look appealing.
A little bit of culinary trickery.
Exactly. Prometheus knew that Zeus would be too proud and too hasty to choose carefully. And he was right. Zeus picked the bigger-looking pile, which, of course, was just bones and fat. Prometheus had outsmarted him, and humanity got to keep the best meat for themselves.
Pretty clever. But I bet that really ticked Zeus off.
Oh, it did. He was absolutely livid when he realized he'd been tricked. As punishment, he took fire away from humanity.
So back to square one for the humans. No more fire, no more warmth, no more cooked food.
Exactly. It was a major setback. But Prometheus, being Prometheus, wasn't about to give up. He defied Zeus again and stole fire back from Hephaestus's forge on Mount Olympus, bringing it back to humanity for the second time.
Wow. He really was committed to helping humanity. But I bet there were serious consequences for this second act of defiance.
There were. Zeus was furious. He decided that Prometheus had to be punished severely.
And it was a pretty brutal punishment, right?
It was. Zeus had Prometheus chained to a rock in the Caucasus Mountains, and every single day, an eagle would come and devour his liver.
That is just awful.
It was, and the worst part, Prometheus was a titan, so he was immortal. His liver would regrow every night, only to be eaten again the next day. It was an endless cycle of torment.
That's truly horrific. But Zeus wasn't done, was he? He decided to punish humanity too, right?
He did. He focused his attention on Epimetheus, Prometheus's brother.
What did he have planned for Epimetheus?
Zeus had Hephaestus create the first woman, Pandora. She was beautiful and gifted. Aphrodite gave her beauty, Athena gave her wisdom and skill, Hermes gave her persuasive speech and cunning, and Hera gave her queenly grace.
She sounds like the ultimate creation. But I'm sensing there was more to this than meets the eye.
Oh, there definitely was. You see, Zeus then sent Pandora to Epimetheus as a gift. Now, Prometheus had warned his brother never to accept gifts from the gods, but Epimetheus, well, he was smitten by Pandora and didn't listen.
Classic mistake, not listening to your brother.
It was. And Pandora brought with her a jar, sometimes it's called a box, and inside this jar was every single evil in the world. Things like sickness, old age, famine, envy, hatred, everything that could cause pain and suffering.
It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It was. And either because she was curious or because the gods made her, Pandora opened the jar and all those evils were released into the world.
So that's how all the bad things came to be.
That's the story.
Yeah.
But there was one thing that stayed trapped inside the jar.
What was that?
Hope. So even though the world was now filled with all kinds of terrible things, humans still had hope to cling to.
It's a small comfort, but a comfort nonetheless.
Exactly. But it seems even all that wasn't enough for Zeus. He was still pretty angry with humanity and decided to punish them even further. That's how we got the story of the Great Flood.
The Great Flood, I've heard of that.
Zeus decided that humanity was just too wicked and needed to be wiped out. He asked Poseidon to unleash a massive flood.
And Poseidon, being the god of the sea, could definitely do that.
Oh, he could. He struck the ocean with his trident and giant waves crashed down, covering the entire world. Mountains disappeared, cities were destroyed, and people were starving. It was complete devastation.
It sounds like the end of the world. But weren't there survivors?
There were. Prometheus knew about Zeus's plan, and he warned his son, Deucalion, to build a ship. Deucalion and his wife, Pyrrha, the daughter of Pandora, survived the flood inside their ship.
Talk about coming full circle. The daughter of Pandora surviving the flood sent by the gods. So they're all alone. What happened to them?
Their ship eventually landed on Mount Parnassus, which was the only piece of land still above water. When Zeus decided he'd punished humanity enough, he told Poseidon to stop the flood.
So the world was empty, except for Deucalion and Pyrrha. How did humanity start again?
They prayed to the gods for guidance, and the Titan Themis told them to walk along the mountain and throw stones behind them.
Throw stones. That seems like a strange instruction.
It does, but they trusted the gods and did what they were told. And something amazing happened. The stones that Deucalion threw turned into men, and the stones that Pyrrha threw turned into women.
So that's how humanity was reborn.
Exactly. They repopulated the world, and life began anew. It's a reminder that even after the greatest destruction, there's always hope for a fresh start.
That's a powerful message. But we've talked a lot about the gods and their actions. Maybe we should spend some time talking about who these gods were. Their personalities, their powers, and the roles they played in the lives of mortals.
Okay, let's start with Zeus. He was the king of the gods, ruling from his throne on Mount Olympus. He controlled the weather, sending rain, storms, lightning, and thunder. His symbols were the thunderbolt and the eagle. He had a lot of, shall we say, romantic encounters, and he fathered a lot of children, both with goddesses and with mortal women. Some of his more famous kids were Europa and King Minos.
Right, and then there's Hera, his wife. She was the goddess of marriage and childbirth, but she was also incredibly jealous, especially of all of Zeus's affairs.
Absolutely. And then there's Poseidon, Zeus's brother. He ruled the seas, and he was also the god of earthquakes and horses. His symbols were the trident and dolphins. One of his more famous stories involves his conflict with King Minos of Crete.
And of course, we can't forget about Hades, the third brother, who was the king of the underworld, where the souls of the dead went. His symbol was a helm of darkness. The underworld is pretty interesting in itself, with different areas for different types of souls. The asphodel fields for ordinary people, Elysium for heroes, and the virtuous and Tartarus for the wicked. And then there's Charon, the ferryman who carries souls across the river Styx, Cerberus, the three-headed dog guarding the entrance to the underworld, and the Furies, who punished those who had committed terrible crimes, especially those involving family. And of course, there's that whole story of how Hades abducted Persephone.
Right. And speaking of Persephone, her mother, Demeter, was the goddess of agriculture and the harvest. It was her grief over Persephone's abduction that caused the seasons, according to Greek mythology.
Fascinating. And then there's Athena, the goddess of wisdom, war, and crafts. She was the patron goddess of Athens. Her symbols were the owl, the olive tree, and the aegis, which was a shield. She had a pretty dramatic entrance into the world, being born from Zeus's head. She also had a contest with Poseidon for control of Athens, and she had that famous weaving competition with Arachne.
And who could forget Apollo, the god of music, poetry, light, healing, archery, prophecy, and more. He had a lot of talents. His symbols were the lyre, the bow, and the laurel wreath. He killed the serpent python, was in love with Daphne, who was turned into a laurel tree, and established the Oracle of Delphi. His son, Asclepius, was the god of healing.
And then there's Artemis, Apollo's twin sister. She was the goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, wild animals, and the moon. She's usually depicted with a bow and arrows. There's a famous story about her punishing the hunter Actaeon who saw her bathing.
And then there's Ares, the god of war. He represented all the violence and rage that comes with war. His symbols were the spear, helmet, dog, and vulture. He had a famous affair with Aphrodite, which got them both in trouble with Hephaestus.
Speaking of Aphrodite, she was the goddess of love, beauty, pleasure, and procreation. Her symbols were the dove, the rose, and the scallop shell. Besides her unusual birth, there's the story of the judgment of Paris, which led to the Trojan War. And of course, there's her affair with Ares.
Hephaestus, the god of fire, metalworking, and crafts, was known for his skill and ingenuity. He was the one who trapped Ares and Aphrodite together when he discovered their affair. He also created a magnificent golden throne for Hera.
Then there's Hermes, the messenger of the gods. He was incredibly fast and was also the god of trade, thieves, travelers, and sports. He even guided souls to the underworld. His symbols were the caduceus, winged sandals, and a winged helmet. He was a busy guy.
And we can't forget Dionysus, the god of wine, celebrations, ecstasy, and theater. He was known for his wild parties and his love of wine. His symbols were grapes, ivy, and the thyrsus, which was a staff tipped with a pine cone. He had a rather unusual birth, being born from Zeus's thigh, and he was the one who gave wine to humanity.
And finally, there's Persephone, who we've mentioned before. She was the queen of the underworld and also the goddess of springtime. Her symbol was the pomegranate. Her story is pretty fascinating, with her being abducted by Hades and having to spend part of the year in the underworld, which is why we have the seasons.
And those are just some of the key Olympian gods and goddesses. They're all fascinating figures, and their stories are full of drama, intrigue, and important lessons.
They definitely make you think. But with the gods established in their domains, Greek mythology takes us to another exciting era, the heroic age.
This is the time when great heroes roamed the earth, often interacting directly with the gods and embarking on incredible quests.
Right. And one of the first figures in this heroic age is Cadmus. Tell me about him.
Cadmus was the brother of Europa, who was abducted by Zeus. He searched for her tirelessly, guided by the oracle of Delphi to follow a sacred cow. Eventually, he reached Boeotia and founded the city of Thebes.
Thebes, huh?
To purify the land for his new city, Cadmus needed to sacrifice a cow to Athena. To do this, he sent his companions to fetch water from a nearby spring, but this spring was guarded by a ferocious dragon.
Oh, I bet that didn't go well for his companions.
It didn't. The dragon killed them all.
So what did Cadmus do?
He confronted the dragon and killed it, but of course, killing a creature sacred to the gods never goes unpunished.
Right. There are always consequences in these myths.
Ares, the god of war, was furious. He spared Cadmus's life, but he forced him to serve him for 8 years as penance. But after serving his sentence, Ares was so impressed by Cadmus that he gave him his daughter, Harmonia, in marriage.
Talk about a turnaround. So Cadmus, the guy who killed the dragon and angered a god, ends up marrying the daughter of that same god.
It was a grand wedding attended by all the Olympian gods and goddesses, except for Hephaestus, who was still upset about his wife's affair with Ares. And remember how Harmonia was their daughter?
Oh, right. That's interesting. And wasn't there a cursed necklace involved?
Yes, Hephaestus crafted a beautiful necklace as a wedding gift, but it was said to be cursed, foreshadowing trouble for Cadmus and his descendants. And you can definitely see the curse playing out in the tragic story of Oedipus, who became the 7th king of Thebes.
Oh, Oedipus. That's the name everyone recognizes.
His story is one of the most famous and tragic in Greek mythology. Oedipus was the son of King Laius and Queen Jocasta of Thebes. Before he was born, a prophecy predicted that he would kill his father and marry his mother.
Talk about a terrible fate. I can't imagine the weight of that prophecy hanging over you.
It was a horrible burden. Laius, desperate to avoid this fate, ordered a shepherd to abandon baby Oedipus on a mountainside with his ankles bound together, but the shepherd couldn't bring himself to do it.
What happened to Oedipus then?
He was found and raised by the king and queen of Corinth. He grew up believing they were his real parents.
So he had no idea about his true origins.
No. But as Oedipus got older, he started hearing rumors about his parentage, and he decided to consult the Oracle of Delphi for answers.
And I'm guessing the oracle didn't exactly give him good news.
The oracle told him the same prophecy, that he would kill his father and marry his mother.
That's awful. What did Oedipus do?
He was horrified. Believing that the king and queen of Corinth were his real parents, he decided to leave Corinth forever, thinking he could avoid fulfilling the prophecy. But as he journeyed towards Thebes, he encountered his real father, King Laius, at a crossroads.
Oh no, it sounds like things are about to go very wrong.
They did. They got into a fight, and in a fit of rage, Oedipus killed Laius without realizing who he was.
It's like he was walking right into the prophecy without even knowing it.
Exactly. Oedipus continued on to Thebes, where he found the city under the terror of the Sphinx.
The Sphinx, the creature with a woman's head, a lion's body, and eagle's wings.
That's the one. She was this monstrous creature sent by Hera to plague the city. She sat at the entrance to Thebes and challenged everyone who tried to enter or leave with a riddle. If they couldn't answer it, she would kill them.
What was the riddle?
It was a famous one. What has 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening?
I think I know that one. A human.
You got it. Oedipus answered the riddle correctly, and the Sphinx, defeated, threw herself off a cliff. The grateful Thebans made Oedipus their king, and he married the widowed queen, Jocasta.
Wait a minute. Oedipus married the widowed queen. Wasn't she his mother?
She was. He had fulfilled the prophecy without ever knowing it.
It's such a tragic story.
It gets worse. Thebes was struck by a plague because of Oedipus's unknowing crimes, and eventually the truth came out.
How did that happen?
The shepherd who had been ordered to abandon baby Oedipus years earlier finally revealed Oedipus's true identity. Jocasta, horrified by the truth, killed herself.
What about Oedipus? How did he react?
When he learned the truth, he was so distraught that he blinded himself. The people of Thebes, shocked and disgusted, exiled him.
So Oedipus, who had once saved the city from the Sphinx, ended up a blind outcast because of a prophecy he could never escape.
It's a classic Greek tragedy, a powerful reminder that even the greatest heroes can be brought down by fate.
It's a powerful story. So who's next in this lineup of legendary heroes?
Well, let's talk about Perseus, another hero who faced incredible challenges, and of course the gods played a big role in his story.
Perseus, the guy who slew Medusa. Tell me more.
Perseus was the son of Danae and Zeus. His grandfather, King Acrisius, had been told by a prophecy that his own grandson would kill him.
It seems like these prophecies never bring good news.
They rarely do. Acrisius, terrified, locked Danae away in a bronze tower to keep her from getting pregnant. But Zeus, being Zeus, found a way. He transformed himself into golden rain and impregnated Danae.
Talk about a dramatic entrance.
It was, and even after Perseus was born, Acrisius was still afraid. He put Danae and the baby in a chest and threw them into the sea, hoping they wouldn't survive.
Wow, that's cold. Did they survive?
They did. They washed up on the island of Seriphos and were rescued by a kind fisherman named Dictys. They lived peacefully for a while, but then King Polydectes, Dictys's brother, started to get interested in Danae. He saw Perseus as a problem.
I'm guessing he came up with a plan to get rid of Perseus.
He did. Polydectes pretended he was going to get married and asked all the young men on the island to bring him gifts. Perseus, being young and not having much, boasted that he would bring Polydectes the head of Medusa.
Medusa, the gorgon whose gaze could turn people to stone. That seems a bit reckless.
It was. But Polydectes saw this as a way to get rid of Perseus permanently, so he readily agreed.
So Perseus sets off on this seemingly impossible quest. Did he get any help? I mean, killing a gorgon isn't exactly a walk in the park.
He did. Luckily for him, being the son of Zeus had its perks. Hermes, the messenger god, gave Perseus a special sword that could cut through anything, and Athena, the goddess of wisdom, gave him her polished bronze shield.
I'm starting to see how this might work out for him.
To find Medusa, Perseus needed to locate the Grey, 3 old women who shared a single eye and a single tooth. He managed to trick them into telling him where he could find special items that would help him in his quest. Winged sandals, a magic bag to carry Medusa's head, and the location of the nymphs who had these items.
So Perseus was well equipped for this dangerous mission. What happened when he finally reached Medusa?
He used the shield Athena had given him to look at Medusa's reflection so he wouldn't be turned to stone by her gaze. And then, using the special sword, he beheaded her.
Wow, that takes guts. What happened after he killed Medusa?
From the blood that spurted from Medusa's neck, 2 creatures were born. Chrysaor, a giant with a golden sword, and Pegasus, the winged horse.
Pegasus, one of the most famous creatures in Greek mythology. So what did Perseus do with Medusa's head?
He put it in the magic bag and flew away using the winged sandals. On his way home, he encountered the Titan Atlas, who was holding up the sky.
Atlas? I thought he was a mountain range.
He is now. When Perseus asked Atlas for help, Atlas refused. So Perseus showed him Medusa's head, and Atlas was instantly turned to stone.
That's how he became the Atlas Mountains.
Exactly. But Perseus's journey wasn't over. He flew over the kingdom of Ethiopia, where he saw Princess Andromeda chained to a rock. She was being offered as a sacrifice to a sea monster named Cetus.
What did Perseus do? I bet he wasn't just going to stand by and watch.
He wasn't. Perseus fought Cetus and killed it, using Medusa's head to turn the monster to stone. He rescued Andromeda and, as a reward, married her.
Another happy ending for the hero. Did he ever make it back home?
He did. When he returned to Seriphos, he found that King Polydectes had been mistreating his mother, Danae.
So what did he do? I bet he wasn't too happy about that.
He wasn't. Perseus confronted Polydectes and used Medusa's head to turn him and his guards to stone.
So Polydectes got what he deserved. What happened after that?
Perseus, his mother, and Andromeda decided to return to Perseus's homeland, Argos, which was ruled by his grandfather, King Acrisius. Remember that prophecy?
Oh yeah, the one about Perseus killing his grandfather.
Well, it came true, but not in the way you might think. Acrisius had fled Argos to avoid Perseus, but during a discus competition, Perseus accidentally threw the discus and hit Acrisius, killing him instantly.
So despite all his efforts to avoid it, Acrisius was killed by his grandson.
Fate is a powerful force. Distraught by the accidental killing, Perseus didn't stay in Argos. Instead, he went and founded the city of Mycenae. And it's through Perseus's line that we get another famous hero, Heracles.
Heracles, or Hercules as some people know him. The guy known for his incredible strength and those 12 labors.
That's him. Heracles was the son of Zeus and Alcmene, and right from the beginning, he was targeted by Hera, Zeus's jealous wife.
I'm sensing a pattern here. Hera really didn't like Zeus's affairs.
Not one bit. She was constantly trying to make life difficult for his children. When Heracles was just a baby, she sent 2 snakes to kill him in his cradle.
Did it work?
No. Even as a baby, Heracles was incredibly strong. He strangled the snakes with his bare hands. It was a sign of the great power he would possess.
Talk about an early sign of greatness.
It was. As he grew up, Heracles was trained in all kinds of skills. But he also had a terrible temper. In one famous incident, he killed his music teacher Linus in a fit of rage.
Yikes. Not the best way to end a music lesson.
It wasn't, but that incident foreshadowed the kind of problems his temper would cause later on. As an adult, Heracles married Megara, and they had children together.
It sounds like he was finally getting his life together.
It seemed like it, but Hera hadn't forgotten about him. In a moment of pure cruelty, she drove Heracles mad, and in his madness, he killed his own wife and children.
Oh no, that's horrible.
It was a devastating tragedy. To atone for this horrific act, Heracles consulted the Oracle of Delphi.
I'm sensing that Hera might have had something to do with the oracle's instructions.
You're right. The Oracle, under Hera's influence, told Heracles that he had to serve King Eurystheus for 12 years.
And this is where those famous 12 labors come in.
Exactly. Eurystheus, prompted by Hera, gave Heracles a series of seemingly impossible tasks to complete as penance for his crime.
So what were some of those tasks, those famous labors?
Oh, they were pretty intense. He had to slay the Nemean lion, a beast with impenetrable skin. He had to kill the Lernaean hydra, a multi-headed serpent that grew 2 heads for everyone that was cut off. He had to capture the incredibly fast Cyrenian hind, a deer sacred to Artemis. He had to capture the Erymanthian boar alive, and he had to clean the Augean stables, which were filled with years of accumulated filth, all in a single day. Host speaker.